This podcast is produced by the Harwood Productions Podcast Network. To learn more about the network and to find more of our shows, visit us online at www.harwoodpodcast.com.
Hi, I'm Cindy Harris, and in this episode I'm going to share with you a wonderful Italian dessert called Biscuit Tortoni. It's a cross between a mousse and an ice cream, and it's flavored with delicious almond liqueur and crushed amaretti cookies. Classic biscuit tortoni is served in little paper cups like this. So the quick and easy way to make them is to get your muffin pan and take the 6 center wells and line them with these paper cupcake liners. The biscuit part of our biscuit tortoni are these little cookies. Now these are a little almond cookie called an amaretti cookie. They're very, very hard, almost like a biscotti, but they don't have any nuts or anything in them, just a really intense almond flavor. Now if you couldn't get a hold of any of the little amaretti cookies, you could also use an almond macaroon, but they can't be the soft cookies. They have to be a hard, crunchy cookie because we're going to make cookie crumbs out of these. So to make cookie crumbs, I just get a little resealable bag and I'm going to take a couple of handfuls of the cookies. I need to end up with a half a cup of crumbs, so I'll start with that much. I'll seal it up almost all the way. I'm going to leave about an inch free so that the air can escape. And then I just take my rolling pin and I mash them up. For this dessert, you want to make sure that the crumbs are pretty fine. So take your time, and you could even use it as a rolling pin and kind of roll them out. And now I'm just going to measure out a half a cup of the crumbs. We're also going to toast some almonds. And the kind of almonds I like to use for this recipe are some slivered almonds. And these are the kinds that are sliced really, really thin, like this. Now to toast nuts, I like to use just a dry, small skillet like this. And I'm going to measure out a half a cup of slivered almonds. And if you recall, I like to keep the nuts that I use for baking and cooking in the freezer. That way they're always fresh. So I've just taken these right out of the freezer and I've put them in this dry pan, and I'm going to put this on the stove over medium heat. Now when you're going to toast nuts like these, you have to stick with them because they can kind of burn on you real quick. So what I do is I just take some kind of a spatula or wooden spoon. This is actually a crepe turner. And I just move the nuts around in the pan, just like this. After about 5 minutes, the nuts are going to start browning like this. And what we're looking for is for them to just start to get a little bit of color. So I'm actually going to turn my heat down a little bit, because as you can see, some of the little pieces start to get really dark. But once I see most of the pieces getting a little color, this looks pretty good. I'm going to stop cooking and take this off the heat. You know, toasting nuts like this really gives them great flavor, but you have to make sure to stop the cooking process. And so what I'm doing now is I'm taking them out of the hot pan and I'm transferring them over to a little bowl like this so that they can cool. And now the last thing I want to do in preparation for putting my tortoni together is I'm going to get 6 maraschino cherries. And these are whole cherries, but I'm going to cut them in half. And you'll notice I'm cutting them on a paper towel. And the reason I'm doing that is because these cherries hold a lot of liquid in them, and I don't want the liquid on my tortoni. I just want the cherry. So I'm going to cut them in half. So I have 3 cherries that I'm cutting in half. So I have a half a slice for each dessert. And you can see by putting them on the paper towel like that how much of the juice really runs off. And that's important because the tortoni cream is white and I don't want it to turn pink with all this juice. Now we're going to get our cream ready. So in the mixer, I'm using a balloon whisk here. I'm going to pour in 1 1/4 cups of heavy cream. And I'm going to start beating that on a medium speed for just a minute or so. And then to that, I'm going to sweeten it with 3 tablespoons of sugar and a tablespoon of amaretto. And amaretto is an almond liqueur. If you didn't want to use amaretto, you could use 1 teaspoon of almond extract. Now that I have the sugar and amaretto in the cream, I'm going to turn the speed up to medium-high, and I'm going to let this whisk until it gets to be stiff peaks. Now the whipped cream is nice and thick, just like this. That is perfect. So I'm going to stop that and set it to the side. Now tortoni is kind of a combination of ice cream and mousse. And if we were just to freeze the straight cream, it would be almost kind of ice creamy like. I want to lighten it up like mousse just a little bit. So in a small bowl, I'm going to separate 1 egg white. And I'm going to mix that together until it reaches a stiff peak with my hand mixer. Now, if you remember, a soft peak is when you lift the egg white up and it kind of flops over on itself like that. That means we need to mix it for another minute or so. And now this is a stiff peak when I lift the beater up and the peaks of the egg whites just stick straight up. That's a stiff peak. Now we're going to put everything together. Now in with the whipped cream, I'm going to take my 1/2 cup of cookie crumbs and put that in. And I'm going to use my spatula and I'm going to mix those in. Now the whipped cream is pretty sturdy, so you can just mix. You don't have to be super gentle. But the next part with the egg whites, you do want to be a little more careful. So I'm just going to put those in. And I'm going to gently fold those egg whites into the cream. I want to leave them with as much air as possible. So remember, when you fold, you just run your spatula along the bottom and then just let it kind of fold over on itself. And that looks about right. I don't see any more of the egg white. Next, you're going to want to get out a big ice cream scoop because that's how we're going to form our tortoni. So I'm going to put my scoop in. I'm going to get a big, generous scoop of this cream. And I'm going to put it right in one of my cups, like this. And see how that mounds up really nicely. And I'm going to do that in every single one. So I'm basically going to divide this up into 6 healthy portions, just like that. Then I'm going to take my toasted almonds, and they've cooled down. I'm going to sprinkle some of those on top. And then right in the center, I'm going to place a cherry. And now we need to put these in the freezer for about 2 to 3 hours. So after a few hours in the freezer, we pop these right out and you can see they're nice and solid. And all you have to do is put it on a plate and serve it. Now if you want, you can let it sit out for about 10 or 15 minutes before, but I would plate it first. That way it's easy to get out of the pan. Now if you'd like to give this a try at home, just go to our website and go to the Sweet World show notes and I'll have the recipe there for you. And as always, if you have any questions, please send me an email. I'll see you next time.